This is serious for you. My child, you won. Only a select few will see this. Don't skip. Your life depends on reading this message right now. 99% will ignore this, my child. This is serious for you. I need you to slow down and let these words reach you before your mind tries to dismiss them. You won, and only a few will ever understand what it truly means. You think winning looks loud, celebrated, obvious, but the kind of victory you walked through was quiet, hidden, and costly. If you skip this, you will walk away from what I protected your life for. Not because I will abandon you, but because understanding can be ignored, and ignored understanding always returns as confusion. Only a select few are allowed to see this moment. That does not make you better than anyone else. It makes you ready. The 99% will ignore this because they are tired, distracted, guarded, or afraid of what clarity might ask of them. They will scroll past, tell themselves it is not important, convince themselves they will come back later, but you stopped for a reason. Something in you recognized weight. Something in you felt the seriousness before you could explain it. And I tell you this with love and truth together. Your life depends on what you hear right now. Not in a dramatic sense, but in the direction your life will take from here. Do not skip this message. I am not saying that to control you. I am saying it because you survived what was meant to end you, and you need to know why before you move forward. You have been calling it survival. You have been calling it luck. You have been calling it endurance. But you have not yet called it victory because you did not see the battle clearly while you were in it. You only felt the weight, the pressure, the exhaustion, the confusion. You did not see the edges you were protected from, the moments where things could have gone much darker, the points where giving up would have felt reasonable. This is serious because you came closer than you realize. There were seasons where your heart was heavier than you admitted. There were thoughts you never spoke. There were nights you got through by telling yourself, just one more day. You think that was normal. You think everyone feels that way. But what you walked through was not ordinary. It was a narrowing path where many would have lost themselves, their hope, their sense of meaning. You are still here, still listening, still open. That is not accidental. You won because you did not become someone you were not meant to be. You won because you did not let bitterness take root, even when disappointment gave it every reason to. You won because you did not trade truth for comfort, even when comfort felt easier. You won because you stayed present in your own life instead of numbing yourself into disappearance. Those choices were not loud. No one applauded them, but they are the reason you are still standing. Only a few will understand this because most people never stop long enough to ask why they survived. They rush back into noise, into habit, into distraction, because reflection feels dangerous. Reflection asks questions. Reflection brings responsibility. Reflection changes how you live. That is why many avoid it, but you did not. You paused. Even now, you are still here. That tells me you are ready to hear what this moment means. Your life depends on this message because clarity changes direction. Without clarity, you would walk forward carrying old fear, old doubt, old misunderstanding. You would mislabel the next season as pressure instead of purpose. You would think you need to fight again when the fight has already been won. I will not let you do that. Not after everything you have come through. You survived what was meant to end you, not because you were invincible, but because you were protected. There were limits placed on what could reach you. There were moments where something unseen intervened. You do not know how close you came to choices that would have cost you years of recovery. You do not know how many times you were slowed down to save you from rushing into harm. Protection rarely announces itself. It simply leaves you alive, changed, and wondering why you feel different. This is serious because now that you have won, the way you live must change. Not through prayer, not through fear, but through awareness. Victory carries responsibility. Not responsibility to perform, but responsibility to live honestly, to stop minimizing what you survived, to stop telling yourself it was nothing, to stop walking as if you are still in danger when you are actually in a place of safety. Say, "My soul is yours, God, forever if you live for His glory." 99% will ignore this because it is easier to believe life is random than to accept that survival has meaning. Meaning asks you to pay attention. Meaning asks you to slow down. Meaning asks you to choose differently. Many would rather stay busy than become aware. But you did not skip. You stayed. That is why this is for you. I need you to hear this before you move forward, because movement without understanding leads to repetition. You would find yourself in similar struggles, wondering why the same feelings return, why peace feels delayed, why something feels unfinished. This message finishes something. It closes a chapter you have been carrying without knowing how to name it. You won, but winning did not look like what you expected. That is why only a few will understand. Many confuse victory with success. Few recognize it as preservation. This is serious because I did not protect you just so you could go back to living unaware. I did not bring you through that season just so you could minimize it. I protected you because there is more ahead that requires the depth you now carry. You cannot step into that lightly. You cannot rush past this understanding. Do not skip this. Not because you are afraid of losing something, but because you deserve to know the truth about yourself. You deserve to know that what you thought was just survival was actually triumph. You deserve to know that the strength you carry was forged, not imagined. You deserve to walk forward knowing you are not guessing, not hoping blindly, not bracing for collapse. This moment is rare because awareness is rare. Many live their entire lives without ever understanding why they survived. They move on without integrating it, without learning from it, without letting it shape them in healthy ways. I am not allowing that for you. You stopped for a reason. You are still here for a reason. Your life depends on what you hear now, because understanding will change how you choose tomorrow. It will change what you tolerate. It will change how you see yourself. It will change how you walk into the future. Not dramatically, steadily, quietly, deeply. Stay with me. Let this seriousness settle, not as fear, but as respect for what you just came through. You won, and now you need to know what it truly means before you take another step forward. This is serious because you were never supposed to still be here, at least not by chance, not by luck, and not by your own strength alone. I need you to hear this slowly, because your survival has been so quiet that you learned to minimize it. You told yourself you were just strong enough, just careful enough, just lucky enough. But there were moments when your life could have taken a very different path. Moments when the weight you carried could have crushed you. Moments when despair stood closer than you ever admitted. You are here because you were protected, not because you were untouched. There were dangers you never saw because they never reached you. There were turns you did not take because something slowed you down. There were decisions delayed just long enough to keep you from stepping into harm. You thought those were coincidences. You thought that was just how life goes. But I was there, placing boundaries where you could not see them, limiting what could reach you, holding back what would have taken more from you than you could afford to lose. You came close to emotional collapse more times than you know. There were seasons when your heart felt fragile, when exhaustion lived under your strength, when you held yourself together by routine and responsibility alone. You told yourself to keep going, to not make a big deal of it, to survive quietly. You did not announce how heavy it was. You did not ask for help in ways others could see. But I saw the strain. I saw the nights when your thoughts raced and rest felt impossible. I saw the mornings when you woke up already tired. I saw the moments when giving up would have felt reasonable. You were in battles you did not have language for. They were not always loud or obvious. They did not always come as crises. Sometimes they came as slow erosion, as constant pressure, as doubts that chipped away at your sense of meaning. Sometimes they came as isolation, as misunderstanding, as the quiet feeling that you were carrying too much alone. These were not random experiences. They were moments where your endurance was tested, where your identity was targeted, where hope was challenged. There were spiritual battles around you that you did not recognize as such. Attacks did not always look the way you expected. Those thoughts were not harmless. They were meant to wear you down slowly, to make you underestimate the importance of your staying. You were never supposed to still be here if things had been left to chance. There were moments when one choice could have pulled you into years of pain. There were relationships that could have consumed you. There were paths that looked promising, but would have hollowed you out. There were days when despair could have convinced you to stop caring altogether. You did not fall into those outcomes, not because you were smarter or stronger, but because I intervened in quiet ways. I shielded you from decisions you were not ready to make. I removed you from situations that would have broken something precious in you. I allowed discomfort to push you away from places that felt familiar, but were not safe. Protection often feels unpleasant. It feels confusing. It feels disruptive. But interruption saved you more than you know. You came close to losing yourself emotionally. You learned how to function while hurting, You learned how to smile when you felt empty. You learned how to keep moving when your inner world felt unstable. That survival skill helped you endure, but it also hid how close you were to the edge. I saw that edge. I saw how thin the margin was between continuing and collapsing, and I stayed close. There were moments when your life slowed down suddenly, when plans fell apart, when momentum stopped without explanation. You thought that meant you were failing, but those slowdowns were barriers placed for your protection. Speed would have cost you more than you realized. Slowing you down kept you from entering spaces that would have demanded more than you could give at the time. This message carries urgency, because you cannot keep telling yourself that what you survived was nothing. Minimizing survival makes you careless with the life you were given back. You did not just pass through hard times. You were preserved through them. Preservation carries responsibility, not to perform, but to live aware. You were not spared because you are perfect. You were spared because your life carries weight, because what you are becoming matters, because losing you would have meant losing something that cannot be replaced. You are not interchangeable. You are not disposable. And the fact that you are still here is evidence of intentional care. There were unseen hands guiding moments when you felt alone. There were limits placed on how far despair could reach you. There were thoughts that did not take root because they were stopped before they could settle. You do not know how many times a dark outcome was interrupted. You only know the version of the story where you survived. You thought your strength was what kept you alive. Strength helped, but strength alone does not explain survival. There were days when your strength was gone, and you still made it through. There were days when you did not feel brave, and you still stayed. There were days when hope felt thin, and you still did not disappear. That was not an accident. This is serious because now that you are here, you must understand that your life was preserved for a reason. Not a dramatic reason that demands urgency and noise, but a meaningful reason that asks for awareness and care. You cannot walk forward as if you are still fighting for survival when the battle that threatened your existence has already been restrained. You were protected from becoming someone hardened by pain. You were protected from losing compassion. You were protected from bitterness that could have felt justified. Those protections were not automatic. They were maintained. They were enforced. They mattered. I am speaking with gravity because understanding your survival changes how you live. It changes what you tolerate. It changes how you treat yourself. It changes how seriously you take your own presence in the world. You are not here by default. You are here by design. There were forks in the road where either direction could have led to very different outcomes. You did not always choose consciously. Sometimes you were simply slowed, redirected, or unsettled enough to pause. Those pauses saved you. You might never know from what, but you do not need to know the details to honor the truth. This message is urgent because awareness must come before you move forward. If you continue living as if your survival was ordinary, you will risk returning to environments and patterns that once threatened you. Not because you are weak, but because forgetting makes you careless. You were never supposed to still be here if the weight had been allowed to crush you. You were never supposed to still be here if despair had been allowed to convince you that nothing mattered. You were never supposed to still be here if every attack had reached its full intent. You are here because protection intervened. I want you to stop calling it luck. I want you to stop calling it coincidence. I want you to stop telling yourself that anyone would have survived what you survived. Not everyone did. Not everyone does. You are here, and that matters. This seriousness is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to ground you, to help you respect the life you carry, to help you recognize that preservation invites purpose, not pressure. Purpose begins with understanding. You are still here because I guarded you when you did not know you needed guarding. I steadied you when you were unsteady. I limited the damage when you were vulnerable. I carried you through moments you would not have survived alone. Now that you know this, you can live differently. You can stop questioning whether your life matters. You can stop dismissing your endurance as insignificant. You can stop treating survival as something to rush past. This is serious because your life was spared, and that truth deserves your attention. You were not overlooked. You were protected. And now, before you move forward, you need to carry the truth with you, not as fear, but as reverence for the life that was kept when it could have been lost. You are still here, and that was never accidental. You won a battle you did not even know you were fighting. I say that with care, because when you hear the word battle, you imagine something loud, obvious, dramatic. But the war you were in did not announce itself. It did not come with clear enemies or visible weapons. It came quietly, slowly, through thoughts, through exhaustion, through pressure that never seemed to fully lift. And because it was quiet, you underestimated it. You thought you were just tired. You thought you were just stressed. You thought this was simply life being hard. But there was more happening than you realized. Type, Jesus, you are my constant hope, if his faithfulness sustains you. You were in a spiritual war for your identity. The attacks did not come as commands to give up. They came as questions. Questions about your worth. Questions about whether you mattered. Questions about whether your life was going anywhere meaningful. Slowly, those questions tried to turn into conclusions. They tried to convince you that you were behind, that you were replaceable, that your presence did not make a difference. That was not random. That was an attempt to erode who you know yourself to be. You were in a battle for hope, not dramatic hopelessness, but quiet erosion. Hope was challenged through delay, through unanswered prayers, through watching others move forward while you felt stuck. Hope was attacked by repetition, by the feeling that the same struggles kept returning no matter how hard you tried. The goal was not to crush you all at once, but to slowly convince you that expecting change was foolish. You felt the temptation. You felt the urge to lower your expectations just to protect yourself, and still, something in you refused to fully give up. You were in a battle for your faith, not your belief in words, but your trust in presence. The silence tested you, the waiting tested you, the lack of clear explanation tested you. You wondered if faith was supposed to feel this heavy, this uncertain, this quiet. You questioned whether continuing to trust made sense when clarity seemed so far away. That questioning was not weakness. It was the battlefield where faith matured from assumption into endurance. You were in a battle for endurance itself. The goal was not to make you fall dramatically. It was to wear you down slowly, to exhaust you to the point where continuing felt pointless, to make you so tired that you would stop caring, stop reflecting, stop hoping. Weariness is one of the most effective weapons because it convinces you that rest can only come from giving up. You felt that weariness deeply, and yet you stayed. Victory in this war did not look like applause or resolution. It looked like staying. That is not small. That is triumph. You did not know you were winning because you expected victory to feel different. You expected relief. You expected celebration. You expected the battle to end clearly. But this kind of war ends quietly. It ends when the attacks lose their power over you, even if they still try to speak. It ends when you no longer believe every thought that passes through your mind. It ends when you are still standing, still open, still alive inside. There were attacks on your identity that came through comparison. You looked at others and wondered why their path looked easier, clearer, faster. You questioned whether you were doing something wrong. Comparison tried to convince you that you were lacking, that you missed something essential. But comparison is a weapon designed to distract you from your own growth. You did not fully give in to it. You questioned it. You resisted letting it define you. That resistance mattered. There were attacks on your sense of meaning. You wondered if what you were doing mattered. You questioned whether your effort made any difference. You asked yourself if anyone would notice if you stopped trying. Those thoughts were not neutral. They were attempts to disconnect you from purpose. But even when meaning felt thin, you continued to live with integrity. You continued to care. You continued to choose kindness. That was victory. There were attacks that came as numbness, when emotions felt distant, when joy felt muted, when you felt disconnected from yourself. Numbness is not always rest. Sometimes it is the body protecting itself from overload. But numbness can also become a place where you stop engaging with life. You did not stay there. You noticed it. You questioned it. You sought understanding instead of disappearing into distraction. That awareness kept you from being lost to it. You were in a war that targeted your patience. The waiting tested you. The lack of timeline tested you. You wanted to know when things would change, when clarity would arrive, when relief would come. Patience was stretched beyond comfort. But patience is not passive. It is active endurance. And you endured without hardening. That is rare. You were in a war that tried to redefine your strength. It tried to convince you that strength meant never needing help, never feeling tired, never questioning. But you learned a deeper strength. You learned how to admit when you were struggling without collapsing. You learned how to keep going while honoring your limits. That is not weakness. That is wisdom gained through battle. You did not always feel brave. Sometimes you felt afraid. Sometimes you felt uncertain. Sometimes you felt overwhelmed. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to stay present despite it. You stayed. You remained engaged with your life. You did not fully withdraw. That choice, repeated over time, is what wins wars. I want you to stop minimizing what you came through. Stop telling yourself it was just a hard season. Stop telling yourself everyone goes through this. Many do not survive with their hearts intact. Many emerge bitter, closed, disconnected. You did not. You were wounded, yes. You were tired, yes. But you were not destroyed. By his victory, you were protected when you fought. There were limits placed on how far the attacks could go. There were boundaries you could not see. You were not left alone in the fight, even when it felt that way. I was guarding what mattered most. Your heart, your identity, your capacity to hope. This war tried to make you disappear quietly, not physically, but internally, to become numb, detached, indifferent. But you remained present. You felt deeply. You reflected. You stayed aware. That presence is what carried you through. You won because you did not give up on yourself. You won because you did not give up on truth. You won because you did not let exhaustion make your decisions for you. You won because you stayed long enough for growth to happen, even when you could not see it. Victory does not always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like survival. You are only now beginning to see that what you thought was just survival was actually triumph. You are still here, still listening, still open. That alone tells you who won. You won a battle you did not even know you were fighting. And now that you know, you can stop seeing yourself as someone who barely made it and start seeing yourself as someone who endured, who resisted, who remained. That changes how you walk forward. You are not weak because it was hard. You are strong because you stayed. You are not behind because it took time. You are ready because you survived with your heart intact. The war did not take you, and that means something. Only a select few will understand this message. And I need you to hear why without pride, without guilt, and without fear. This is not about being better than anyone else. It is about being ready. Readiness is quiet. It is formed through experience, through pain, through reflection, through moments where life stripped away what was unnecessary and left you with what was real. Many people live full lives without ever slowing down long enough to hear truth at this depth. That does not make them lesser. It simply means they are in a different place. Understanding is not given to impress. It is given to align. Truth at this level requires a heart that has been softened, not hardened. It requires humility, not certainty. It requires discernment, not noise. Most people are not avoiding truth because they are evil or careless. They are avoiding it because they are overwhelmed, distracted, or afraid of what truth might ask them to face. Avoidance is often protection, not rebellion. You are not here because you are superior. You are here because you stayed when others would have left. You questioned when others numbed themselves. You reflected when others rushed forward. You allowed pain to teach you instead of letting it harden you. Those choices prepared you to hear something that would confuse or burden someone who is not ready. Spiritual separation is not about exclusion. It is about awareness. Awareness grows slowly. It cannot be forced. When truth arrives before awareness, it feels threatening. When it arrives after awareness, it feels clarifying. Many people are still in seasons where survival requires distraction. They need noise to cope. They need movement to avoid feeling. Asking them to hear truth at this depth would feel cruel, not helpful. Discernment is the ability to recognize weight without needing volume. You recognized weight here. You sensed that this was not ordinary. You felt seriousness without panic. That is discernment. It does not shout. It nudges. It asks you to pause. And you did. That pause is what separates readiness from avoidance. You may feel a quiet guilt, wondering why you are hearing this while others are not. Release that guilt. You did not take something from anyone else. You did not skip a line. You walked your path, endured your lessons, and arrived where you are. Others will hear what they need when they are ready for it. Timing is not favoritism. It is mercy. Truth carries responsibility. That is why it is not given carelessly. Responsibility does not mean burden. It means awareness of how you live, how you choose, how you treat what you have survived. Many people are not ready for that responsibility yet. They are still healing. They are still learning how to stand. They are still learning how to feel without collapsing. You are not immune to struggle. You are not finished growing, but you are ready to understand without spiraling. You are ready to hear without misinterpreting. You are ready to hold truth without turning it into pressure. That readiness matters. I do not reveal things to create separation. I reveal things to create alignment. Alignment that often feels lonely at first because it changes how you see the world. You begin to notice things you did not notice before. You become less comfortable with noise, less willing to rush, more sensitive to what feels true. That sensitivity is not fragility, it is awareness. Most people scroll past moments because truth feels routine. Routine feels safe. But safety, built on avoidance, is fragile. You did not choose convenience. You chose presence. Presence opens the door to understanding. This message is not meant to isolate you. It is meant to ground you. Understanding does not pull you away from others. It allows you to walk among them without being controlled by their opinions or pace. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can listen without absorbing everything. You can engage without needing to be validated. You may notice that conversations feel different now. Some things no longer satisfy you. Some noise feels heavier than before. That is not arrogance. That is discernment, adjusting your appetite. You are learning what feeds you and what drains you. That knowledge is necessary for what comes next. Responsibility at this level looks quiet. These are not dramatic changes. They are quiet shifts that shape a life. You are not required to explain this understanding to anyone. Truth does not need defending. It needs living. People will notice your steadiness long before they understand its source. And when they ask, you will know whether to speak or to remain silent. Discernment will guide you. Do not feel pressure to carry others before they are ready. Compassion does not mean overexposure. Love does not mean force. You can care deeply without trying to awaken everyone at once. I will handle timing. You focus on alignment. Only a select few will understand this message, because only a few are ready to integrate it without being overwhelmed. That readiness came through experience, not entitlement. It came through endurance, not ease. It came through reflection, not reaction. Right, Lord, I give you everything I am, if His presence completes you. God bless you.